Hello, welcome back to the garden. Today we're up here on the patio. It's the 13th of June today and I'm going to be direct sowing my French beans. For the last few years now, I've only actually direct sowed my beans and grown them in pots rather than starting them off in modular seed trays or direct sowing them into the ground. And the main reason for that is I've always had trouble with slugs and snails, especially when I had my allotment and I would direct sow beans, they would just disappear and never come. Or the time that I'd spend ages modular sowing them, growing them on, taking them down to the allotment, putting them in the ground, and I don't know, they'd be gone the next day. So I gave up doing that. I really like growing them directly in pots because you can direct sow them and you can put them in there at the right time of year, which is around about kind of late May to June. And then they just grow, which is so much easier. At this time of the year for me, I am so busy with getting things planted in the ground or keeping them alive in the ground as they settle in. So by waiting for this time of the year to put your beans in, you don't really need to worry. All you need to do is sow the seeds and keep them watered, and then nature does the rest. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video though, because I'm going to be trying something different that I've never done before, and I'm hoping that it's going to be really successful. So I'm going to be growing 5 varieties of beans today, 2 climbing, and then the 3 are dwarf French beans. So the first variety of the climbing beans that I'm going to be growing are one that I've never grown before, and they are called District Nurse. Now they came from the Heritage Seed Library and I've never grown them before, but I got a book last year called The Seed Detective, which is grown by somebody that actually is involved with the Garden Organic and the Heritage Seed Library, and when I got the book, I got these seeds included with it. So all it says about these beans are, this bean was originally donated to the Heritage Seed Library by a district nurse. Prolific, tender and very tasty, the Welsh heirloom has pretty lilac flowers followed by dramatic colourful pods and is very disease resistant. So that's so exciting because I haven't got a picture of them and I've never grown them before. So I just love seeds that have a story. So it says, for an early crop, sow seeds individually in pots in late April. When 2 true leaves have emerged, harden off before planting out 20 centimetres apart in a double row in late May. So alternatively, sow direct in early May and can be grown in large containers. So that's great because they're going to be put in containers today. I always love getting saved seed from somewhere else rather than buying it. And what's amazing about the Heritage Seed Library is every single seed has a story. So I'm really excited to be growing that this year because, you know, colourful pods. Are they going to be purple? Are they going to be multicoloured? Who knows? The next variety that I'm going to be growing are these Bolotti beans, Bolotto Lingua di Fiocco, probably pronounced completely wrong. They are a bean that you can use for stews, and you actually use the bean rather than eating the pod. The next variety, which is a dwarf one, is Slenderette. I've grown them before, as you can see here, but don't know too much about them. I can't remember, so they obviously, you know, weren't that amazing that I remembered, but yeah, I'm going to be growing those. The next variety I've got, which are Canadian Wonder. Canadian Wonder is the kidney bean basically, so I really like growing these because they're red beans. They're great for using in your cooking and stuff like that, so that is what I'm going to also be sowing. And then the last French bean that I'm going to be growing is this one here called Safari, and rather than growing it for the bean or, like, you know, the bean inside, Safari is one that's like a really nice kind of round, quite a juicy bean that's really tasty as well. So those are the varieties that I'm going to be sowing this year. I would really love to know which varieties you're growing, and also as well as what varieties you're growing, let me know if you start them off in modular seed trays kind of earlier in the year, or you also direct sow them in pots. My plan is to sow 10 beans in each, and that's 2 around each cane. Now I've been using these pots for about 10 years and I've only ever really grown my beans in them every year, so this soil definitely needs some rejuvenation, and I think I'm going to be doing that over the winter. But for the time being, what I'm going to be using is a blend of topsoil and some peat-free compost that came from a grow bag. I'm going to give quite a nice layer, and then we're going to put the beans directly in. And because both of these pots haven't had anything growing in since the beans last year, I think I'm going to give it a weekly feed of some seaweed just to help kind of penetrate into the soil below and wake up all of the bacteria and all of the healthy organisms in there that have probably gone to sleep because there hasn't been much going on in there all year. Right, I think that's enough soil in there now. The first ones we're going to do are the District Nurse. I'm hoping there's 10 seeds in here. Usually you get 10 seeds. Oh, and interestingly, these beans look like they're good for drying as well. So it's probably a lovely drying variety. One thing that does actually benefit your beans is actually soaking them overnight before you plant them, just because they're kind of already plump and ready to germinate, but I've not done that. So I'll just make sure I keep on top of watering them a little bit more. There we go, that's the District Nurse in. And then the Bolotti beans at the back. They're in. Now on to the dwarf French beans. When I was in the garden centre earlier, I couldn't resist picking up 2 of these little pots. I really love terracotta pots, and I always like to, you know, every now and then if I see a different one or one that's pretty good value for money, I'll pick it up, because I eventually, on the steps down to the kitchen, I want to have, you know, loads of different ones on there. I've got quite a few at the moment, and we'll head down there in a bit because like I said, there's something that I'm going to be trying for the first time this year in a minute. But I've got these 2 here. Again, these are just filled up with a blend of topsoil and peat-free compost from a grow bag. Hopefully that will be good enough to grow them in this year. So we've got Canadian Wonder, I think. We'll try putting those in here. Again, we've got the Safari and the Slenderetta, but I really like the Canadian Wonder. Obviously, this is a much smaller pot than the ones that the climbing French beans are going to be in, but whenever I sow the dwarf French beans together, I always put 2 seeds together, just because I feel that when they grow, having the 2 stems next to each other kind of just helps give them a little bit of extra support. So I think I'm gonna go with putting 10 in here as well. This is a much smaller pot, isn't it? So we'll just put 2 lots of 5 kind of around the edge. These are also quite old seeds now, so I want to, if I can, kind of use them up, and then hopefully I'll have a load more that I can use for saved seeds in the future. One reason that I love growing French beans rather than runner beans is, for one, a French bean doesn't go stringy, they're smaller, they seem to last better in the freezer, but dwarf French beans usually pollinate themselves as they open, which means they're self-pollinating on the whole, and if you save the seeds, it's most likely that it will come true from seeds. So you don't need to worry, you know, that they haven't cross-pollinated and things, because runner beans, they cross-pollinate with anything, and even if you've got somebody, you know, 100 gardens up, bees travel really far and they're just all over the place at this time of year pollinating everything. So if you want to save your seeds, a French bean is what you want to grow. So now we're going to head to the steps where I mentioned we're going to be doing something that I haven't done before, and that is planting some French beans in my old pots. Now I've got a number of old pots there that always grow my spring flowering bulbs in. So they've got a range of daffodils, tulips, hyacinths, and some other things like irises. And what happens is they go over in kind of May time, and then I completely ignore them. They get watered a bit as they die back and, you know, kind of charge themselves up to grow next year, but I actually haven't done anything with them, and as you can see, they look like an absolute mess. So what we're going to be doing today is giving it a really nice mulch with this compost that I've got here, and we're going to be planting directly into those. So fingers crossed they do okay, and then I can get a lovely crop of beans in, ready to be out for maybe something else to go in this year before the bulbs start growing again for a lovely display next spring. So I've probably put about 1 to 2 inches of compost on the top of each of these pots. So that should give the beans enough to get going this year, but it will also help the bulbs grow in the springtime. So I think, as I don't have any plant labels with me, the easiest thing for me to do is put the different beans on each of the steps here. I've got more of the Slenderettes. We're going to put these along the top, and then I've got the Safari, which we're going to grow down the bottom here. So as you can see, that is the Safari seed. The Safari, like I said, is one that you want to be eating the whole pod. So if you save the seeds, they're not really going to be, you know, that beneficial. And again, I'm just going to put 2 together. And I'm going to put 8 in this one. It's a little bit smaller. And then we've got 10 in these pots. Probably way too overcrowded. And this little one is tiny, so I'm just going to put 6 in here. So because all of these beans are grown in pots, and the ones down on the steps there have been grown in pots that haven't had much attention over the last few years, I just need to make sure over the next couple of days while they're germinating, I give them a water every day. And as soon as they start growing, I need to maybe give a weekly feed, or definitely a fortnightly one, so they get all the nutrients that they need so they can grow lovely and healthy and give me lots of fruit. I really hope you've enjoyed watching today's video. As I mentioned earlier, I would really love to hear the varieties of beans that you're growing this year. And if this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, I really hope you've enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified of all of my latest videos. As ever, YouTube have some videos up now on the screen that they think you'll like. So please go ahead and watch those, and I'll catch up with you in next episode. Bye.